There is a number sitting inside Nia's laptop right now. She hasn't looked at it yet. She's made her tea, she's opened the spreadsheet, and she's hovering over the formula bar the way you hover at the edge of something before you decide to jump. The number isn't dramatic. It won't appear with a sound effect or a warning. It will just sit there quietly, the way important things usually do. Patient, factual, and slightly devastating. This is the story of what 4 years of silence actually costs, and what it means to finally do the maths. Nia is 31 years old, and she is, by every reasonable measure, good at her job. Her manager says it in reviews. Her colleagues show it in the way they copy her on emails they want to get right. She has been promoted once, praised often, and passed over for nothing she applied for. She earns £48,000 a year, and until this evening, she had never once questioned whether that number was correct. Not incorrect in the way of an error. Incorrect in the way of a story that was written without her input and that she agreed to quietly 4 years ago, and then again 2 years ago. And then again last spring when her manager sat across from her and said the word invaluable and offered her a 3% raise, and she said thank you and meant it. She is not a pushover. She is not unambitious. She has simply never thought of salary negotiation as something that belonged to her. It always felt like a move made by a certain kind of person, louder than her, less grateful, more willing to risk the warmth in the room. So she accepted what was offered. She told herself she would prove her worth first, and then ask. But the asking never had a natural moment. The proof kept being enough for everyone except her bank account. Tonight, she has pulled up a salary benchmarking report for her role and her city. The median is 56,000. She has opened a compound growth calculator. And she is about to find out that the problem was never her performance. The problem was her starting number. The reason Nia never negotiated isn't a mystery. The logic she followed was not irrational. It was taught, absorbed, and quietly reinforced at every stage of her working life. You take the offer because the offer is proof they want you. You prove yourself before you make demands. You do not risk the relationship before the relationship has even started. You are grateful for the room before you ask for more space in it. This logic feels like wisdom. It is often dressed as humility or professionalism or patience. And it is disproportionately handed to anyone whose presence in certain rooms already felt like something that required justification. The caution is not paranoia. It has roots. But the cost of it is real, and it doesn't announce itself. It doesn't show up as a rejection or a slight. It shows up as a number that compounds quietly in the background of your career, year after year, never asking permission, never explaining itself. That is the part Nia is about to understand. But Nia is not the first person to sit with this particular silence. And the moment she is standing in, calculator open, benchmarking data pulled, the faint discomfort of realizing something should have been different is not new. It has been stood in before, collectively, loudly, by women who understood that an anchor set without your consent is not a baseline. It is a boundary, and boundaries can be moved. In April 1919, in the city of Boston, nearly 8,000 women walked off the job. They were telephone operators. The voices that connected every call, routed every line, held the infrastructure of an entire city's communication in their hands. The work was skilled, precise, and relentless. The pay reflected none of that. The women, organized under the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, had been asking for a wage increase and formal recognition of their labor's worth for months. The company had offered adjustments too small to be taken seriously, so they stopped working. The strike lasted 6 days. The city felt it immediately. Businesses could not reach each other. Hospitals struggled. The governor of Massachusetts intervened personally. Within less than a week, the operators had won a wage increase and returned to work with the knowledge that their silence had been worth more to their employers than anyone had admitted while they were speaking politely. What the telephone operators understood, and what makes their story worth pausing on here, is that the wage they had been receiving was not a neutral fact. It was a figure that had been set by someone else, agreed to under conditions that were never equal, and then treated as though it was simply the market rate. The anchor had been placed without their input. And for years, every small adjustment, every modest improvement had been measured against that original distortion. They didn't ask for the moon, they asked for a correction. And the correction required them to make visible something that their employers had every incentive to keep quiet, which was that the number had always been wrong. This is the part of the story where, if you're finding this useful, the history, the context, the way old decisions echo into modern ones, it might be worth subscribing. There's a great deal more of this to come. The telephone operators of 1919 weren't anomalies. They were early. They were doing, collectively and publicly, what is still one of the most quietly radical acts available to a working woman, refusing to accept someone else's valuation of her labor as the final word. The operators went back to work on the 6th day. The raise they won was not enormous, but the principle it established was what they had demonstrated in the full view of a city that had suddenly discovered how much it needed them was that the gap between what they were paid and what their labor was worth had never been inevitable. It had been a choice made by people with the power to set numbers, and it could be unmade. The more significant legacy of their strike is less visible but more durable. The operators built a precedent inside their industry for what it meant to name your worth and stand behind it. They showed that the discomfort of asking was temporary and that the cost of not asking was permanent. Every year they had worked at an anchored wage was a year that compounding worked against them. The raise corrected the present, but it could not recover the past. Nia, sitting in her flat now, has not organized a union. She has not made a demand in public. She is doing something quieter and, in its own way, just as deliberate. She is calculating. She is refusing to let the number remain abstract. She is choosing to look at what the silence has cost, clearly, before she decides what to do next. That is not a small thing. It is the beginning of correcting a distortion that was never hers to absorb. And the telephone operators, had they known her, would have recognized it entirely. The spreadsheet is open. The formula is simple. Nia takes her current salary of $48,000 and compares it to the market median of $56,000. The gap is £8,000 a year. She has been in the workforce for 7 years. She did not undernegotiate every role, but she undernegotiated the ones that mattered. The anchoring ones, the ones that set the baseline every future offer was measured against. She runs the numbers conservatively. She assumes modest annual raises on both figures, applied consistently. She looks at what £8,000 a year, grown forward over 7 years, with reasonable investment returns applied, would have become. The figure that appears is not catastrophic. It is not the kind of number that makes headlines, but it is hers. Specific, personal, and entirely the result of a pattern she had never once named. It is somewhere north of £60,000, quietly accumulated, quietly absent. The cost of a silence she had always assumed was free. Here is what changes when you see the number clearly. It stops being about courage and starts being about information. Negotiation, when you have done the research, is not a confrontation. It is a correction. Nia is not about to walk into her manager's office and make a demand from a place of grievance. She is going to make a case from a place of data. She knows the market rate. She knows her performance record. She knows what the gap is and what it costs per year that it remains unclosed. The shift in behavior is not loudness. It is precision. It is the move from, I hope they think I'm worth more, to here is what the market indicates and here is my evidence. That shift from hoping to knowing, from deferring to documenting, is not a personality transplant. It is a skill. And like every financial skill, it compounds. The first negotiation is always the hardest. It is also always the most important. If Nia's situation is recognizable to you, the starting point is not a difficult conversation. It is a quiet Tuesday evening and a benchmarking search. Find the market rate for your exact role, your experience level, and your city. Not a national average, a specific one. Glassdoor, LinkedIn Salary, and sector-specific surveys are your tools. Write the number down, then open your own pay history and calculate the gap. Do not estimate, make it specific, because specific numbers are harder to dismiss, including by yourself. From there, the action is simple even when it doesn't feel it. In your next salary conversation, lead with data before you lead with feeling. Arrive with a number, a range, and one or two pieces of evidence that support it. You are not asking for generosity. You are presenting a correction. The research is the confidence. You do not need to be a different kind of person to do this. You need a spreadsheet and 30 minutes. Nia closes the laptop, not because the number is too much, but because she has seen it clearly enough. She knows what she is walking into the next conversation with. She knows what she is correcting, and she knows the way you know things that have quietly been true for longer than you realized. That the asking was always available to her. She simply hadn't known, before tonight, exactly what the not asking had cost. That is what money literacy actually is. Not a trick, not a hustle, not a secret the right people are keeping from you. It is the practice of making the invisible visible and then deciding what to do with what you see. Nia has done the first part. The second part comes next week. If you want me to make other videos explaining these topics, please like this video, subscribe to this channel for more smart insights, and click the notification bell so you don't miss what comes next. Thanks for watching.